Greetings, students. This is the Professor Travel welcoming you to day 4 of our Baltic cruise. This day saw us going to the former Republic of East Germany, and now the location we are visiting is Rostock, and more specifically Schwerin Lake and Castle. From the moment we left the ship, you could easily see some of the architectural differences in this area. Some of them were a little bit more geared towards the older communist era, where some of the buildings seemed maybe a little bit more sturdy, not as necessarily artistic unless they were specifically cultivated that way. Rostock is a small port city that has approximately 40,000 people and is very close to Schwerin Lake and Schwerin Castle. Our tour took us to the lake where we were able to get a panoramic view of the immediate location. According to our tour guide, a number of youths actually have boats, or their family have boats on the lake. So it's really a nice vacation spot in order to just be able to enjoy the lake, enjoy the environment, get some exercise, but ultimately just make it kind of an excursion for yourself. Schwerin Lake has a drawbridge, or a hard bridge actually, that goes directly from the mainland into the castle on the island. As we went into the cruise, we went around the lake and around the castle and got a lot of different panoramic views of the facility. It was under repair as it is constantly being done, but it's a really spectacular looking castle. Notably, Schwerin Castle is one of the locations Walt Disney had gotten some of his inspiration from in trying to produce the Sleeping Beauty Castle at Disneyland and Disney World resorts. Before doing a short view of the castle from the inside, we decided to get off the cruise and go and take a short jaunt through the actual city of Schwerin. Schwerin is an older city from the medieval times that has a lot of the same buildings still intact. On display, beautiful picturesque sculptures that have been there for quite some time. This particular one is actually attached to a fountain. This one is on display right before you get to the local cathedral. The cathedral inside Schwerin is actually a very, very tall building and completely built out of brick, with minarets that reach all the way into the sky. Many of the buildings, including Schwerin University, are actually built in a medieval type structure with embattlements on the tops of the buildings. Present, you'll still see a lot of the remnants from the communist era of when the East German province used to be part of the communist regime. Even the old post office has a certain set of charm to it. As we look down the street from the city of Schwerin to Schwerin Castle, you can see it looming in the distance with huge minarets from the side. Approaching, you can see what would normally be the main entrance, but most tours go in through the side entrance, which is located nearby the garden. The gardens are very picturesque and serene. On guard are a number of statues overlooking the garden as well as the city, as well as trumpeters to sound for any alarms that might be in the area. The sculptures were not just referring to the outside. Inside you could see a variety of them on display, as well as intricate carvings and paintings along the walls. I was impressed with how intact and how well preserved most of the location was. The stained glass windows were picturesque and beautiful. The inlaid floors were just extraordinary. The colors were vibrant and rich, and the furniture well preserved through the ages. Despite the humidity, the rich wood architecture within the facility was well on display with very minimal damage. The ceilings were covered with fresco as well as paintings. We also got a display of what Schwerin Castle will look like once it's completely refurbished. Some of the original statues have been brought in from the outside in order to help preserve them through the issues of time and wear. Also on display, designer plates and crockery from the bygone era. The local ruler's throne room, in effect, was on display as well and still kept in a relatively good condition. with doors covered in gold. This is such an opulent location to be able to observe. I was really amazed at the detail of a lot of these places. It's really well preserved, but it's also very intricate. As we made our way through the facility, you could see the touches that are done not only on the walls and the ceilings, but the floors as well. Many of the rulers' lineage has been documented along the walls of the area. As we made our way into the gardens, you could see even more sculptures and fountains that just dot the area and even decorate the gardens more. The preservation from the local entrance fees make it so that the touring doesn't necessarily interrupt, but actually enhances the area and preserves it. Next, it was our time to head back into the Schwerin city in order to be able to enjoy a little bit of lunch. We started with a rich and hearty tomato soup with some bread, followed by meat, potatoes, and vegetables, as well as some beer. If you're not used to heartier foods, this is probably going to come as a surprise to you, because when you get into the Eastern Bloc countries like Germany and Russia, Estonia, you're going to find that the majority of the diet is based on meats and potatoes, and things that will grow in some of the more rigid of climates. We then made our way back to the port area of Rostock, where we actually went to St. Mary's Cathedral, which is one of the oldest cathedrals in the area. Before going into St. Mary's Cathedral, we found that the immediate town square was bright and vibrant with a lot of color. As was mentioned, St. Mary's is one of the oldest cathedrals within the area and has a lot to offer. The historical context of most of the information that you're seeing is just well preserved, even with having been bombed during the Second World War. Most of the area was actually well preserved from the bombing runs during the Second World War, although the stained glass windows in the area did not fare as well. The stonework, architecture on display was well preserved, as was much of the religious iconry. As you can see, a lot of the lower portions of the stained glass are still intact, but a lot of the upper levels are not. Unfortunately, that was due to blasts that occurred from a lot of the bombing runs during World War II. Since then, a number of pieces of stained glass have actually been refurbished and have been put back into place. Still on display, beautiful artwork and sculptures from the eras during the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages. The rich history of this area is preserved by its people, and intricate items like the pipe organ of St. Mary's is well preserved. The main altar, an area where the leaders of the Catholic Church come to do and speak during the most holiest of days, is well on display. In this area, you can see that a lot of the stained glass did in fact either survive or was replaced. Different art types dot the cathedral, some more ancient and some more contemporary. Again, more glass sculpturing, really colorful, really vivid. Wooden items and sculptures, well appointed, as well as porcelain. Also on display, this beautiful millennial clock that is still functioning and has been working for hundreds and hundreds of years. Even the weavings are well preserved, although no flash photography is allowed anywhere within the cathedral. Shawls and fabrics keep their wear away because, again, no flash photography is done within the facility. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, it does mean a lot to me, as well as following me on Facebook and Instagram at The Professor Travel, or alternatively on Twitter at The Professor TR1. I thank you so very much for finding me, and again, make it a wonderful day.